Hey everyone, Connor K. Now, I have been posting to fanfiction, obviously, and in one of my chapters, and on Archive, actually, Archive of our own, I put up, like, if anyone had any questions to ask me about anything, they could. And this applies to everything, YouTube, DeviantArt, anything you want to ask me. Like, if you want to ask how many blinds are behind me, go ahead, I'll answer that fucking question. I'll count them. It should take, like, 2 minutes or so. Um, But I got the first actual question that I got that I want to answer this way is from Pink Diamond 4000. Now, she has reviewed, I think, every chapter of every story that I've put on fanfiction. That at least every chapter of every Fire Emblem story that I've put on fanfiction. I have 3 Kamen Rider stories and 1 Legend of Korra story. But her question asks, first off, how do I get so much inspiration? Specifically, it says, just how do you get so much inspiration? Because you upload a chapter every day. Just how do you do that? How do I get so much inspiration? Don't really know how to answer that. I'm not really inspired by anybody to write. I just write because it's fun. That's the whole reason that I started writing fanfiction back in the day. I read them first, and I'm like, I'd love to do this. And it's totally possible. Like fanfiction, the way that it presented itself to me when I was younger was just like you write whatever and then you upload it, and that's what I did. Granted, the first fanfiction that I uploaded, which I believe was the original Fire Emblem New Emissaries back in 2008, was the best of a line of not that good stories. Like seriously, one of the earliest stories I actually wrote was pretty funny. It was also a Fire Emblem one, but it was set after Path of Radiance, with no knowledge of Radiant Dawn. So I wrote that story on the assumption that there was actually a dark god in Leheron's medallion. So the story was about that god being unleashed. Um, and it was written completely in pen on loose leaf paper, even though I had access to a computer at the time. I don't know why I did that. But I never submitted, had no intentions of submitting that story. It was not good. Um, but, so I really can't say that I get inspiration from anything because I don't. I have read some really good fanfiction by some really good people. Like the first name that comes to mind, my favorite Korra fanfiction that I've read since the finale of the show is called Chosen's Chosen by Audacity of Huge. Love that one. And 2 of the best Fire Emblem fanfictions that I've been reading are called Cerulean Heart and which by Vanai Vazan, something like that, and Bedtime Story by Go-Kart 48. Really good stories. Really cool guys. If anything, Go-Kart 48's story makes me want to write a Fire Emblem Awakening story. So there's a little inspiration there. The second part of the question was, because I upload a chapter every day, how do I do that? Like, how do I upload a chapter every day? Because I learned that you do not upload chapters as you write them. Like, if I was to open up Microsoft Word right now and write chapter 1 of a new story, and then open up fanfiction and submit that chapter, that's not the best thing to do. You should always edit and reread your chapter as many times as you feel you need to. Or get a beta, someone else to read. I have none. I don't have anyone reading my stories. I do it on my own. Because I don't... It's not like, oh, I'm so good I can do it by myself. Not at all. I don't think I'm an amazing writer by any stretch of the imagination. I have my own problems with my writing that I can't solve. And I just decide, you know what, I'll just keep going with it. If I can find later ways to at least lessen my feel of these problems, I will. But I'm not going to go out of my way to stop that. But I have clearly improved. I really think so. If you read, pick any chapter in Fire Emblem New Emissaries from 2008 and read one, and then pick any chapter from New Emissaries Redux and read one of those. Like, you don't need to know what's happening. You can just tell that the rewrite from earlier this year is much better than the one from 2008. Like, seriously, it's incomparable. Anyway. So I write ahead. So what I did, let's go back to day 1. I wrote 5 chapters. I reread the first one a few times, and I submitted it to fanfiction and Archive of Our Own to get me started. The next day, I reread chapter 2, 3, 4, and 5 and edited them, and then I submitted chapter 2 to fanfiction Archive of Our Own. The next day, I read chapters 3, 4, and 5, edited them again. So by this time, chapter 3 has been edited 3 times. And then submitted it to Fanfiction Archive of Our Own. And the next day, I read chapters 4 and 5, edited them again, and so on and so forth. That's what I do. Every time I sit down to write, I start by going to the next chapter that's going to be submitted to fanfiction. So tomorrow, I have to submit chapter 26. So I'm gonna read chapter 26 tomorrow and edit it one last time. I've edited chapter 26 at this point. It wouldn't be so much of a stretch to say 25 times, except that it would be. But I've edited it at least like 8, 9 times since I wrote it. I've been rewriting it since I originally wrote it. So I will read chapter 26, edit it as I go along, submit it to Fanfiction Archive of Our Own, read chapter 27, edit it, read chapter 28, edit it, and start writing chapter 29. And then the next day, same thing. Read chapter 27, edit it, submit it, read chapter 28, edit it, read chapter 29, edit it, write chapter 30, and so on and so forth. So it's just this constant flow of writing and reading and editing, so that they come out. So they end up coming out one every day, Monday through Friday. Since if I can get on the computer for at least 45 minutes on Saturday or Sunday, I will edit the current chapter and submit it. I won't read anything else because I don't want to take up too much time on the weekends. But generally, it's one chapter a day. I would love to submit more, but I'm trying to teach myself self-control. Like actually, because I want when they go up to be the best that they could possibly be. I've already had this problem once before, where I had to go back and edit chapter 15, and then I had to tell people that I changed a part of it later down the line. Like if you start reading now, it won't matter to you. But back then I was like, this is a much better explanation. Thanks to Cormac Ravenstaff, one of my reviewers, how he mentioned, he just kind of alluded to something. And I'm like, you know what? He's got a point. So I worked something into a previous chapter from like a few days back. So yeah, and in addition, it's also great to have this in case, because if you submit a chapter, you give people the chance to read it and review it before you submit the next one. And sometimes the review might come with information that you could put in the next chapter. For example, another reviewer named You Know Not just kind of says things in his reviews, a lot of things, or her. And they're very long reviews, which I love, by the way. Like, I don't care if the review ends up being longer than my story. I'll read that shit. And she says some things like, why did this character not do this? And in the chapter, as I wrote it, I kind of figured, well, he shouldn't do this. Like, he just shouldn't. So they didn't. But the fact that they brought that into question, I'm like, you know what? I should probably try to explain that. So in the next chapter, I add in a paragraph about it. For example, I don't even think I should give an example. You should understand it. But like, one character does not kill a character that he probably could have killed, maybe. Like, realistically, he couldn't, but maybe he could have. And they're like, well, why not? And so, like, I explained it in the next chapter. I had the character go into depth of why he decided not to do it. And so, it helps that way, keeping things in line. So, to answer the question, like, in summary, how do I submit a chapter every day? I write ahead. And why do I write ahead? That was all the reasons for it. So, that was the one question. Hope that answered, even if it was a really roundabout way that I probably didn't need to do. But that's all. And seriously, if you have any question about my videos, about Zen, the production vlogs, about my DeviantArt, anything on Tumblr that you see, anything that I say, and you're like, hey, you remember when you said this? Can you like elaborate on what you meant? Feel free to ask. I'll answer it. Seriously. I'm about to start counting these blinds. So, until next time.